I wasn't planning on going for a walk today, but I just had kind of a mind-blowing experience with AI. And so I just felt really compelled to just pick up the mic and share what's just happened. So I'm building an application, a SaaS app, and maybe I'm a bit crazy, but I'm doing the auth flows, making all those work. It's using Supabase as the backend, so I'm not building the whole stack. I'm just using the existing Supabase APIs to do authentication. So I got the sign-up flow working, and how I've got it wired up is that it will send an email once you've registered, and you have to confirm your email before you can sign in. Now that confirmation link expires. Now I wanted to set up a flow where if the user went back to the login page and tried to log in, but they hadn't confirmed their email, they would get a little message that said, hey, like you haven't confirmed your email yet, and then also show another button to resend the confirmation email because potentially the link had expired or some other reason why they kind of needed to send that email again. Now that email sending used a separate API from Supabase. So there's one API to sign up and there's another API to resend, that confirmation email. And as I was building out the tests for this, it wasn't working how I expected, right? And I was just getting this kind of strange error. And so instead of digging in too deep, at home I use VS Code and I was using, I think it was the Claude 4.5 model. And I just basically explained what was happening. I gave it probably too wide of permissions. I gave it a lot of, it can do a lot of different instructions. It's not going to stop every, whatever it is, 25 kind of tasks. It's just going to keep going for a long time after that. And I just let it go. And it spent about an hour crunching on this problem. And I watched a bit of it. This was at night. Sometimes I'd dip out and do something else and come back and just see how it was going. And it was actually mind-blowing to see. So it would do things like start the app, put all these sort of debug things in there. It would print it out, and then so it could understand what was happening at different points. Pretty much doing bisect debugging, kind of all on its own. And what it ended up finding out is that there is a inconsistency in how Supabase does its sign-up email flow versus its its resend, email flow. I won't go into all the specifics of what was different, but it turns out that they're different. And it's actually in the Supabase code, there's kind of a to-do saying, we need to implement this flow there. And it actually looked through the Supabase code to find that to do, and it also then proposed and created a way to effectively have two flows. One which was the existing flow for signups, and then created a different flow for the resending, which needed to do things in a different way because of these inconsistencies in how the Supabase sort of re-authentication or resending, reconfirmation flow is something that's different to the original sign-up flow. And I kind of was just reflecting on it this morning, and I also don't want to oversimplify and say it was just one prompt, I let it go forever. I tried once, it kind of failed. I was on the ChatGPT 5.2, and I kind of jumped over to Claude and had a better time. And, sometimes it kind of went and did some stuff I wouldn't have done myself, and there was some additional stuff in there. But overall, it was pretty amazing. It would have taken me so long to pinpoint that issue, and a lot of deep understanding of things, and not just the fixing of the issue or finding out what the issue is, but then the whole, I'm going to search through their code base and find out exactly where the code is for this flow and figure out why it's not working. It was actually kind of amazing. And also, as coming out of that, it was then that I got it to create a GitHub issue for me, like a markdown file, which I then just pasted in. And it had everything you could think to ask for in a GitHub issue. It had, the description. It had, what's wrong, what needs to change, where the code is that needs to be updated, and deep links to it. Had reproduction sort of code. It had workaround code. It had everything, everything. And it just knew really well what was happening. I was just like, wow, you've solved the issue that I was having with minimal effort from me, like oversight, but minimal effort from me. Debugging this stuff would have taken me hours and hours and hours of really kind of focused mental energy and sleuthing. And it just did a really, really good job at it all. And I was just kind of stepping back and just thinking, wow, like I feel, which I think ties into some bigger thoughts I've been having around AI lately. And full disclosure, I don't know what the future is. And I'm actually really bad at predicting the future. So I try not to do it. But I mean, if you look at me now, I'm using AI in my engineering flows. If I go back like a year, I basically wasn't using it. I had a few experiences. I found it to be pretty mid at best. And yeah, it just didn't feel like it was a big accelerator. It kind of felt like it was just a noisy kind of thing. And maybe I was just holding it wrong. But, I've been leaning into it in the last few months. And I've kind of been, yeah, it's like some things are not great. Like I don't want to paint it all as it's just this amazing thing that's going to solve everything. But I have had a number of experiences now that are building up that I'm like, wow, like this is really, really cool. I feel like it has helped me understand more. Like my knowledge is increasing faster than it ever has because there's gaps. Like, I don't know exactly how the Superbase API works. So I don't know how this other thing works. And it can explain these things in a very clear way. I can ask follow-up questions. I feel like I'm able to learn things faster than I was before. I'm able to get to answers faster. I'm also finding that it's able to do grunt work for me that, this wasn't necessarily adding value, but just took time. I feel like the time for me to complete certain tasks has really dropped significantly. And so, yeah, I'm still kind of, I want to be wide-eyed about what's going on and, the implications and what it means. But I guess I've sort of started to flip from being relatively like pessimistic, if I'm honest about it all, or pretty skeptical, to having a number of just really positive experiences in the last little while and kind of thinking, wow, this is some really cool stuff. And I kind of get it. I kind of get it why people are so hyped about it. If you haven't kind of tried using these AI assistants yet, here's what I do. I'm not saying it's the best thing, but it's been pretty helpful. So I pay for ChatGPT and I use that as a general kind of research tool. I find it's effectively the next evolution of Google is how I'm thinking about it. I can ask very tailored questions and I can follow up questions with more questions. That's something I've been considering, is that Google or general searching, you kind of have one shot at the search query. I need to search for this thing. And if you're too specific in that search, you can often miss what you're actually looking for. Whereas I find these AI tools, you can do a search and then you can continue to search and have search becomes a conversation rather than just a one-shot thing. And I find that has helped me so much in understanding. If we're focused on engineering specifically, it's helped me really understand so much more content, so much quicker than I could have in the past. The other thing I'm using is like IDE assistance. So at home, I use VS Code. At the moment, I'm just using the free, allowance, still under that, which is great. And that works really well. I've found, if you're choosing between the models, I found the Claude model to be I found it just to be a little bit, it just seems to fit how I would do things a little bit more. Although I do alternate between that and the GPT 5.2 as well. And they both seem to be pretty reasonable. At home, I don't really get it to do huge amounts of code for me. I'm using it more as a little assistant to do some grunt work or help me explain things. At home, something that's been really mind-blowing is color math. So I'm building an app and I'm making my own color system. And those color systems are historically pretty tough to make. There's a lot of mathematics, there's a lot of nuance in it. And I can just use the AI in the editor to say, here's my system for color ramps. Can you make me a warning color ramp that's based on orange? And it'll look over all the relationships between the existing ramps, identify what they are, and create a new ramp that uses the same relationships. That is crazy. That is so cool. Doing that stuff by hand in the past is a nightmare. And then as I'm using these colors in my app, I can go, oh, like this, the contrast between these two things when this is on top of that doesn't feel good. Like, let's rethink these relationships, these ramps, how they sit on top of one another. And I can have a conversation with the AI to figure out what to do. And then it can go ahead and apply that new thinking across all the colors at once. I don't have to do any crunching or open up any other tools. And it's actually been amazing. But at home, I'm using it more as an assistant. So I just really like making software, and I really want to understand deeply what I'm making and what it's doing. So I'm more using it as a little accelerator. At work, I'm using Cursor, like a paid Cursor, and I'm using the Pro model, I think. And that's really good. And yeah, I use that quite a bit for similar tasks, although at work I do it a bit more prototyping, and so I'll often get it I'll just vibe code out a big prototype and just prompt it to success. And yeah, the code isn't awesome, or maybe it is, maybe it's okay, it's sufficient, but for the prototype, just demonstrating something, it's been so cool. You know, instead of taking a day, 2 days to do a robust prototype, it can do it in a couple minutes. Like, that's great. So I'm walking through the bush today, talking about AI, and if I could just leave you with one thought, and that is, I've gone from being relatively skeptical and having pretty mid experiences with AI to just being so impressed in the last little while. So if you're sort of on the fence about leaning into it and giving it a go, I guess there's pretty much no harm in giving it a go, other than environmental, which I won't go into here. But there's, on your daily workflow, like, create a new branch, get it to do something, see how it goes. If it sucks, discard it. If it's cool, like, yeah, keep going with it. I've been pleasantly surprised recently with how good it's feeling to use. Anyway, that's me. Catch you later. Bye.